Hello, my name is Dilly MacFarlane, and this is the Alumni Special. Today I'm happy to welcome as my guest Sister Mary Jean Burns, who is the Executive Director of the Home of the Guardian Angel in Halifax. Hello, Sister, and welcome to the Alumni Special. This is a special year for the Home of the Guardian Angel.
Yes, it is. It's our 100th anniversary.
100 years. Well, that's quite interesting. I know that you are the Executive Director of the Home, and I wondered if you could tell us a bit about your professional background up to the time that you took over your current post.
Well, actually, it was rather varied. I attended the Mount, the college, before I became a sister, and then after that I taught school, elementary and high school. Then I came to the Mount as Dean of Students for 6 years. I was on the Home Economics faculty for an additional 4. And then I went to replace Sister John Elizabeth as Executive Director. Sister died rather suddenly of cancer, and I was asked if I would replace her at the Home of the Guardian Angel. And I've been there since, just over 10 years.
I see. So there have been a lot of changes over the years with the Home of the Guardian Angel. I understand that the concern of the Sisters of Charity for the welfare of foundling infants began almost immediately, that as soon as they arrived in Halifax in 1849, they began to concern themselves with this. So what did they do about their concern, Sister, in the beginning?
It's really interesting, and it certainly opened a whole new area of interest for me in coming to the home, because I didn't know that much about it. But when the sisters first came, we do read accounts where they used to have like the children just in living with them, and they started taking in orphans of all ages almost immediately, it seems. Then gradually, as they had more facilities, they established an orphanage, and as that became more established, they separated the infants, the small children, from the tiny ones up to 5, from the actual orphanage itself, and formed a separate institution, and that would be in 1887.
This would be the facility on Brunswick Street.
Yeah, originally there was another building nearer St. Patrick's Convent that became the Brunswick Hotel, I think. And then when the orphanage was built on Quinpool Road, they then took over the entire facility on Brunswick Street. It's still there. I think it's a hostel at the present time, and became a separate institution. They certainly had enough children to warrant it at that time.
Now, over the years, the sisters have patterned the resource in the Home of the Guardian Angel to accommodate the needs of society. And those have changed over the years, haven't they?
Well, they have. And in the very beginning, we just had people who were looking after infants, and then gradually we came into the whole profession of social work, when you had Sister Mary Clare and Sister John Elizabeth were among the early people who trained in social work. And
they were real pioneers in the province.
Yes, they were, very much so. And Sister Mary Clare certainly was the leader. Sister's still living at the Mother House. And they began to, as society changed, and then the idea of keeping children in institutions was not seen as a good thing, that the whole idea of foster homes seemed to evolve. First of all, the children living at the orphanage would go out to school, and then they started finding foster homes for them. And then, of course, with the younger children, this was really an easier thing to do than with the older ones. At the Home of the Guardian Angel, some of them remained there up to 5 years, but those who were free to be adopted did start to. It was in the early 60s, late 50s, early 60s, when Archbishop Berry actually came to Halifax. He was also a social worker, and with Sister Mary Clare and Sister John Elizabeth, they first really became very active in trying to promote adoptions. And we recently had Sister Helen Patrice, who had worked with the toddlers there, said that she really got out of a job because of this, because the people began to adopt children. And even up until about 15 years ago, you would find like announcements in the church bulletins and things trying to find homes for children. Now we have virtually hundreds of people waiting to adopt babies, because the whole scene has changed considerably. The young unmarried mother, at one time it was quite unheard of to keep her child, whereas now it has become really quite common.
Now, in the early years, I suppose you would actually find bundles on the doorstep.
Yes, yes, that's true. They did. They tell me. I never have. But yes, that used to happen.
And this was in the years before the home took responsibility for caring for the mother before the birth of the child.
Yes, yes. In those days, the mothers used to come in sometimes after the birth of the child, and help care for them and help with the work and so on.
I expect the sisters would have foreseen the need to shelter the pregnant mother and provide medical care and nutrition.
That's gradually evolved, so that I think the early infant mortality rates also prompted them to realize that good prenatal care for the mother was very essential for the baby.
It's quite a recent thing, though, isn't it, when you think of, this would be what, the early 1915 to 1920 in that.
Yeah, it would be really the 50s before they really had this emphasis on bringing the mothers actually into residence, and then working more with them. I mean, providing more of a residential situation and having them there for a few months. Usually about 3 months is what we recommend, and during that time they receive a lot of counseling and try to determine what is going to be best for them and for their child in the future. Yes.
How is the funding arranged for the home in the initial stages of its development? Was there any government support for you aside from what?
Not initially, no. It was the Archdiocese of Halifax owned the facility, and the sisters ran it. There were a few very small grants, but a lot of you really had to depend a lot on the charity people and their willingness to give both provisions and money, and the Archdiocese used to pick up a deficit. The sisters contributed their services. They did not receive salaries.
Well, as was so in every profession of the sisters, the teaching profession.
Very much so.
Healthcare
Yes,
and so
yes.
on. Now, the home now is located on Coburg Road.
Yes.
And it's a beautiful place. I've had occasion to visit there once or twice, and it is a beautiful building. How is that funded, sister? How is your operation funded?
Well, at the present time, we are funded. About 2/3 of our funding comes from the provincial government, the Department of Social Services, and the Archdiocese of Halifax gives us a grant every year. The Halifax Dartmouth United Way, and then the rest would be private donations and some funds that we realize through charging board for the young women, although we'd never refuse anybody if they couldn't pay. And then private donations are also a great help. Yes.
How many young women are now in the home?
At the present time, I think we have 8. We can accommodate 10, and we have 8 there right now.
I see. And they, as you said, they stay for 3 months. It must be rather expensive. It must be quite costly to provide that kind of extended care. Do you have any idea of what, as far as a per client, if you'd like, what the cost would be to maintain? If you have 10 that you're caring for.
The per diem for the residents last year was around $27, $28 per day, and which is rather low in a way. I think because we still do have sisters working there, I think we perhaps do not have quite as much staff as we would otherwise.
What is your staff situation? How many are currently working at the home?
Well, in the different services, we have about 13 full-time people, and probably about 6 to 8 part-time.
I see.
Yes.
Who are some of the people that work there? I wondered. I know you had mentioned that some of the sisters are still actively involved. I suppose they would be involved in you as an administrator and others as social workers.
Well, yes. Sister Judith Breen, who's one of our younger sisters, is a social worker. Sister Geraldine Lancaster is coordinator of the single parents. We have a single parent center in Spryfield as well.
It's quite an outreach for you, isn't it?
Yes.
Wonderful facility.
Yes, but our concern really for some of the young women who choose to parent their children and really have very few supports really prompted us to start that. And then Sister Marguerite Francis is in the residence, and Sister Rosina is works in the nursery 4 nights a week. She's just delightful, dear little old lady. And
she was a registered nurse.
She was a registered nurse. She used to, people would remember her from being in charge of the nursery at the infirmary at one time.
I imagine some of our viewers probably, she would know them better than they realize if they were born at the infirmary.
I wouldn't be surprised, yes.
And she still comes 4
nights a week.
Well, bless her.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting. Sister, tell me, I'm looking at the progress of a social institution like the Home for the Guardian Angel, and how you have adapted your operation to provide for needs. I'm thinking now of the young women who are having babies and keeping them. You've had to adjust to accommodate their needs.
Yes.
What do you see in the future for the Home of the Guardian Angel? How do you see the home continuing to provide this service?
I think that there are a number of things that we have to be very attentive to. And that is, we certainly are trying very hard to help the young women who are keeping their babies. I think a lot of it's important that if you have good counseling before the child is born and they are able to work out, like if their families are able to help them, or if the father of the child is able to give them support. And we don't have a large number who have to go on social assistance and try to do it on their own. Usually we try to make sure that they do have supports in place so that the prospect of managing is fairly good. Now, as far as adoption, that is a very important service, and we do place more infants than any agency in the province. As a matter of fact, I think it's quite unusual across the country to have as many newborn infants placed as we do. And I feel that part of this is because we try to work with the young mothers and help them really determine what is best in this time of their life for themselves and for the child. And when it comes to thinking of allowing somebody else to parent their child, it's important that they be part of the adoption plan, that they can tell you about what type of a family they would like their child raised in. Do they want a mother who's at home? Are they okay with a mother who works? Would they like to feel there are other siblings? Do they think it should be a professional couple? If it's a girl who perhaps is in university herself, who is going to have, her prospects for quite a stable life are good, she certainly would have more demands perhaps for a child.
Yes, I see what you mean.
More of that type of thing. And it's very interesting. Sometimes if they have musical talents or artistic talents, it's important that their child perhaps will be exposed to this. So that we do a lot of allowing them to. Some also feel they really would want to be able to have some contact in knowing how the child is doing. It would be non-identifying. But so that from time to time as the child is growing up, in that case we'd have to have a couple who's very open to that type of thing. And I feel that if we are going to continue to have adoptions, that this is very essential.
Tell me, Sister, we're hearing more and more today about adopted children who are seeking out their natural parents.
Oh yeah, that's very common.
And the reverse of the process with mothers who may have given up a child years ago looking for their child.
Yes.
Have you had personal experience with that sort of situation?
Yes, I have.
And so what is how does that process handled?
Well, when we have an inquiry, if the people come to the home, I see them and we talk about them. Previously, children, when they were adopted, I think perhaps verbal information was given to the parents, but not a written list of non-identifying information, sort of biographical sketch of the parent and that type of thing, and health record. Whereas now we give that at the time of presentation. So very often we give them the non-identifying information that's on their back file. And then we tell them that we'll make a record of the inquiry. And if you have an inquiry from both parties, then it's usually possible to facilitate a reunion. But this is usually has to be referred to the Department of Social Services at that time.
Yeah. So in other words, you are sometimes able to see some happy situations develop, or to just help
Very
people?
interesting, very
Good.
interesting situations, yes.
Sister, I would like to thank you so much for joining us today. And
you're welcome.
for more information on the background, the history of the Home for the Guardian Angel, perhaps you would like to write to Mount St. Vincent University and we'll forward your inquiries. Sister, thank you again for coming.
You're
And
welcome.
thank you for joining us today on the Alumni Special.